All right, hey everybody, this is my weekly recap of a week's worth of articles. So, the week that we just wrapped up was the week of July 26th through August 1st. And the way it works is I have a spreadsheet here where I collect articles where it looks like people in Oregon or organizations are doing something that makes Oregon easier to work, live, and raise a family in, or makes it harder. And so +3 for you did a major action that made Oregon a better place, easier place to live, work, and raise family in, or -3 if the opposite. And so I collect the articles from various news sources. It's mostly the primary, these guys, the big hitters in Oregon, the different newspapers, and then I filter for articles that where it looks like there was an actual action taken, not just an article that's adding context or analyzing the situation. And I think this is going to be an iterative process and to land on which exactly articles I should score and how they should be scored. So probably once I've done it for, a few months, I'd probably say, at a point in time, all scores after September 1st, October 1st are official scores, and before that was just sort of the working out the kinks trial version type of thing. So, and then you can see these are the articles for next week that haven't been scored, and they won't all be scored. These are just ones I thought could be scored, and then I'll delete a bunch of them because they don't seem to apply. So, that's the situation. And then so you have the comprehensive rankings that have been going on since late June, basically, and then it's like the cumulative score. And so Oregon State University is number one with the +6 based on 3 articles scored. And at the bottom, we have the Trump administration with a -8 based on 4 articles scored. So, yeah. So, once I have a consistent methodology for scoring things, I will I'll probably reset things. But yeah, here's the link to the public Google Sheet that anyone can look at to see how the rankings are and how they were compiled and why things happened the way they did. So, then today's video is supposed to be just sort of like a weekly recap of what happened, and then I'll append the individual short videos that are 1 to 2 minutes long where I explain why I gave this score, the -3 or the +1. So, at a high level, this week we see Tina Kotek is the high scorer with +3, um, raising her up to an overall score of +1. And this is based on 2 articles this week. And they were articles where what did she do? This one, she stopped the sale of public land that was going to be used for a data center. So stop the project going forward as currently constructed. That's a major Rainmaker action. And the other one is pushing back against Trump and FEMA for wildfire money, because since they only gave money for 3 of the 5 wildfires, and she's just asking for equitable treatment with the Republican states that he's giving money to, which has been a problem in the Trump administration. And then we got Jeff Merkey and Ron Wyden, the senators for Oregon, doing the same thing, pushing back against FEMA. Andrea Salinas, federal House rep, for pushing back against ICE. Hillsboro City Council for putting a moratorium on any new data center permits for 120 days. So that was positive interaction. And then Mitch Green +1 for lobbying to get a Portland slip and slide reinstated. And that does sound pretty ridiculous, but it is a positive action. And like I said, we'll see. We'll calibrate going forward which articles should be scored and which ones should not. So maybe in the future that one wouldn't be scored. I don't know. We'll see. And then the big negative scores, what we already talked about, the ICE officers who, wear masks and no badges and don't identify themselves. So now criminals are impersonating their tactics. And that's obviously really bad. Any law enforcement should have a badge and should not wear a mask and, identify themselves. Tom Dundon for continuing to not negotiate in good faith with the city of Portland about the Blazers. Since, yep. So that's sort of the wrap up. That's the summary of this week. So we'll see what happens next week. But yes, next will be the explanation of each individual score. See you next time. All right, so this article is a city ordered to pay 700,000 to Portland family whose home was crushed by a tree in 2024. The family asked for permission from the city to remove the tree before it was toppled. So, yeah. So they bought the house in 2022. They tried to remove two Douglas firs. The city said you can't do it after a 5 minutes inspection. And then in January 2024, the tree fell, almost killed their child, and wrecked their home. So they sued the city for $4 million, and the jury said that they got 700,000. So kind of a low amount, but I wasn't on the jury, so who really knows? So for this one, we give a -3 of major damaging action to City of Portland and the Portland's Urban Forestry Division, because yeah, is if we're ranking you on how well you're doing is making, Oregon a easy place to live, failing to let people cut down a tree on their own property that was dangerous to their home is a, major violation. So major blocker, I would say. So it's a -3 for City of Portland and Portland Urban Forestry Division. Okay. So this one is it's going to be a +1 for the Hillsboro City Council. So they are banning new data centers in a surprise city council meeting. So they sort of did a sneak attack. So with 1 day notice, they said they were going to pause approving any applications for new data centers or large battery storage projects. So 4 month pause as they think about rules that they want to use going forward for whether or not they're going to approve new data centers. So it's a step in the right direction, and hopefully they can, put some safeguards in place to protect people's water, power, roads, and all the other things that they use to see if they really deserve such large tax breaks for existing in the city of Hillsboro. So +1 for pausing new projects. Okay, so this one is Oregon Congresswoman says feds provide few answers on immigrant death investigation. So this is Andrea Salinas. She's one of our federal representatives. She is over Salem, Yamalpoke, southwest suburbs like Tigard. So she's been in Congress for 3.5 years. And yeah, so basically she's holding a hearing, or she participated in a hearing where people are going after ICE for killing and hurting people, basically. And so they're demanding independent investigations, answers, ICE agents to start wearing body cameras and no masks. And so for this one, I give a +1 to Salinas for trying to push for these policy changes, even though she currently does not have the power in the House to make any of the changes, but at least she's trying and participating, so we'll give her that much. This is what a federal rep should do. So yeah, +1 for Andrea. Okay, so for this one, we have some guys in July, most likely impersonated ICE officers. They look like ICE. They look like cops. They covered their faces. They kidnapped some people, saying they were ICE, beat them up, and then let them go. Um, so, and then the article is just writing about how in Oregon they passed a law where it says officers you can't cover your face and you have to identify yourself. It took effect this year, but it's not. I mean, it's more just stating what they would like to have happen, because Oregon state law can't supersede federal law. So if the federal agents want to continue operating this way, masks, no badges, unmarked cars, then I don't think there's anything Oregon can really do about that. But I will score this article a -2 for ICE because if ICE operates in such a way that you can't really tell who's a real police officer, now you're opening it up for criminals who want to do the same thing. Just wear a mask, unmarked car, the tactical gear, and then just start kidnapping people. And so their way they're operating makes it so criminal impersonators can just do the same thing pretty easily. So -2 for ICE on this one. All right, so this article, 1 week after Daimler Truck North America announcing that they're moving a Reno distribution center to Portland. Got another news announcement, this time a bad one, that they're going to move their truck manufacturing plant from Portland to the Carolinas, losing about 375 jobs in the Portland area. So, yeah, Daimler Truck is kind of a big deal. 3,000 jobs in the Portland metro area, making about 40% of every large truck sold in North America is coming from Daimler, so like semis, school buses, stuff like that. So yeah, they're moving their manufacturing, which I think the Portland manufacturing was only like 1 to 2% of their total truck creation, and I think the rest of it was in the Carolinas, so maybe they're just consolidating it all, but it's obviously bad for Oregon to lose almost 400 jobs. So giving them a -1 for that score after their +1 from the week before. Yeah, never a great thing for Oregon to lose jobs. Okay, this one's a little complicated. Clackamas County appoints James Rhodes interim sheriff, and I'm going to give it a -1 for to the county commissioners for bad process. Yeah. So basically, the current sheriff retired Angela, or she announced her retirement, Angela Brandenburg, 3 months before the election, and appointed an interim sheriff, which is Jesse Ashby, one of her under sheriffs. I don't have a picture of him. Anyway, and then the commissioners, as is their right, opted to install their own pick, who is this guy, James Rhodes, who's this gentleman here, as the temporary sheriff at the urging of the police union. And so the police union, Ben Wiley, who in the past had filed like lawsuits or complaints against the current sheriff, Angela, he's saying that there was like an urgent need to appoint someone quickly. He says, we need someone who's completely familiar with the ins and outs of the sheriff's budget, will tell the board the truth about what's actually happening in the department. But the guy that they appointed hasn't been in the department for 5 years. He retired 5 years ago. So they're bringing him back, this guy. And it's not to say that he won't be a good sheriff. You're just giving him an advantage because now he's the incumbent running um, in the fall election. And then another guy announced shortly thereafter that he would also be running for it. This Brad O'Neill person will be also running for the sheriff position in the fall. So election will determine who is the sheriff, but the point of the matter is that failing to use an open process makes it look unfair, and like they gave Rhodes an advantage when they didn't need to. I mean, there's no proof that there was any corruption or wrongdoing. It just looks bad. And then if you look at other recent places who've had to replace their sheriffs as well, like Deschutes County in 2025, they had an open process. 5 people applied. They interviewed them publicly. They chose someone. Lane County in 2025, the same thing. Marion County, 2019, 2023, open processes both times. So, I mean, it definitely happens when sheriffs retire midterm, but typically you interview people and have an open process and not just do whatever the police union says is some urgent need to get someone in the spot. Or they had someone in the spot, the interim person that was put in there, Jesse. So he could have just done the role while they did the interviews. But yeah, I think there's probably like a lot of hidden things that I don't know and that the article doesn't report. I think there's a lot of bad blood between Angela Brandenburg and the union president. So yeah, and at the end of the article they talk about how the person who was appointed, this Rhodes, this guy, James Rhodes, was accused of some misconduct back in 2018, and then the county settled it, which doesn't mean guilty, but it could mean guilty, and then he was demoted after that and then retired. And when he retired, the current head of Clackamas County Commission was the head of, he was the sheriff. The Craig Roberts, he was the sheriff at the time when that guy was demoted and then retired. And he's the only person who didn't vote yes on this, on approving him. So yeah, -1 for an opaque process and the appearance of something not transparent, but I don't know all the facts, and the facts aren't super clear. So, all right. So the last time we scored Tom Dundon and the Blazers was back in June 25th when he showed up. Some event and said that he's not putting in any money for the Moda Center renovation and only public money should pay for it. So it's been a month of back and forth, and finally the Trailblazers agreed to come to the city and talk about what exactly they're looking for, since they've mostly been, I'm pretty sure, just doing what their owner tells them to do and not negotiate with the city. And so they finally show up, which is great, but they refuse to give any information about what the 600 million is going to be used for, like what specific renovations it will be for, unless the city waives its legal rights to sue the Blazers, because the prior lease said they had to keep it in a first class condition when they were the owner of it for decades, until they gave it to the city for $1 before, and then the city has to assume the liability of renovating an arena that should have been kept at first class according to the agreement. So the Blazers want to not be able to be sued for that before they share what renovations they would do. And Tundon, the owner, still is not going to contribute any of his own money to this project. So I'm going to give the Blazers, I gave them a -2 last time, and then since their belligerence has only been displayed, is just going to give them a -3. Because if you can't even tell us what the money will be used for, it prevents the city from making an informed decision, puts the public at risk, and it seems like the Blazers, they either want the taxpayers to fund everything or they want to leave Portland. So it's a -3 for Tom Dundon and the Trailblazers. Okay, so this one's +2 for Tina Kotek. Oregon Governor Kotek stopped state from selling land for Salem data center. So what happened was, the article doesn't cover all the history, but basically this company, Buris, is like a data center builder, had been working with with Sedcor, the city's economic development staff, these guys in the Willamette Valley, in 2025 to explore a site for a data center near Salem. And they got an agreement with two people. One of them was the state of Oregon for 32 acres, and the other one was Scandell Properties for also 32 acres. So like a conditional approval to sell the land to this Ferris data center company. And then this was all in 2005 and through 2026 until June. So Salem city leadership didn't know about this until June of 2026, and then in July, they publicly revealed a project that they're planning a 5 billion 75-acre data center project. And obviously there's a giant backlash at the city council meeting. The city council proposes to slow new data centers, and then this is when Tina Kotek says the state's not going to sell the 32 acres of land to this company. And so they could still buy the land from the private company, the other 32 acres, so you could technically have a smaller project. Kotek is just saying the state's not going to sell the land that you're planning on using for this data center. Yeah, so that's it. And I give +2 because Tina Kotek took direct action to stop selling public land for data center usage, and I mean it sends a message to the rest of the state's leaders like you can also take bolder action like this, and it's frankly nice because Tina Kotek is usually the queen of creating advisory committees, as she even in this thing, it's like all she does is create, well, not all she does, she creates a lot of advisory committees for every major decision. So it was refreshing to see her use her executive power and just act, and that's, yeah, that's needed more of. Less, I mean, it's good to have committees and consultants and whatnot and have the best decisions, but at the same time we also need leadership and decision making. So kudos to Kotek for doing that in this particular situation. Okay, so this is another Willamette Week article. Following outcry, city will allow Brooklyn Park water slide to return. After Willamette Week reported on the slide being shut down, the Park Bureau has backtracked. So basically, there's Brooklyn Park in Portland, just north of Selwood. Apparently, they have this water slide for the last 50 years every summer. And then the Parks and Rec Department said you can't do it anymore because it's damaging the grass. And everyone thought that was incredibly stupid. And Mitch Green from the Portland City Council did something concrete. He wrote to the interim Parks Bureau Director, Art Pierce, to reverse a decision, and then it was reversed. So, good news. But again, it's sort of like it's a -1 for the Portland Parks and Rec because you're putting the concerns of grass ahead of a free youth activity that has been there for 50 years. And it's good that they reversed their decision, but I mean, they wouldn't have without public outcry and, Mitch Green saying something. And I give +1 to Mitch Green for responding quickly and, you know, pressuring the right leader to reverse the decision. So 2 scores for that one, a -1 for Portland Parks and Rec, +1 for Mitch Green. Unfortunate event that, didn't really need to happen, but there we go. Kotek presses feds to get Oregon farmers, ranchers same urgent wildfire relief as red states. So what happened is, yes. So the FEMA approved firefighting assistant grants for 3 fires, but denied 2. And so she's sent a letter to the head of FEMA saying, please grant it for the other one as well. And this comes in context of a federal lawyer admitting that the administration withheld federal grants to states based on whether the voters backed Trump or Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, and if they had 2 Democratic senators. This isn't for FEMA grants specifically, but that was for Department of Energy grants. But, analysis has been done that Trump is approving 25% less of requests for disaster aid to blue states compared to 90% for red states. So maybe there is a legitimate reason why FEMA only approved aid for 3 of the 5 fires instead of all 5, but there's a history of Trump's administration being very political and how they dole out money based on whether or not they support him, which is pretty terrible and a really bad way to run the country. But yeah, so we'll give Tina Kotek a +1, and then also the 2 state senators because they also are lobbying FEMA as well, to, I think, probably give a reason why they denied it, and then I guess maybe they'll use that to sue or something. But the point of the matter is, if you don't get the FEMA funding for the wildfires, then the state of Oregon is going to have to pay for all the costs, and that will fall on the taxpayers of Oregon. So this, what appears to be capricious awarding of FEMA grants, is definitely a negative impact for Oregon. Okay, so for this one, key legal resource for immigrant kids to expire with federal contract, advocates say. So basically, the Trump administration did not renew a federal contract that paid nonprofit lawyers. It was coming from the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is part of the Department of Health and Human Services. So they would give $65 million to this Center for Justice, who would send it around the country. And the point is to provide legal representation to kids children who came to America without a parent, and this would impact 175 kids probably in Oregon, because the only group in Oregon that gets this money is the Immigration Counseling Service in Oregon. So I mean, this is just feels pretty cruel to have kids show up at immigration court without, you know, any legal representation or adult help, and just feels like a cruel policy to not spend 65 million to provide that. So that's a -2 for the Trump administration and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for not making Oregon a better place to live.